everyone. My name is Shasha Rabiha binti Abdul Khalid and my metric number is 8212097. Today, I would like to tell a story entitled The Fisherman and His Wife. I am a fisherman, just a simple fisherman. I do not come from a great family. I do not own land, power, or rich. I only know the sea, my boat, and the quiet routine of catching fish each day. My wife and I live in a small hut beside the sea. It was old, narrow, and uncomfortable. But to me, it was still home. It was not much, but it was what we had. Every morning, I would go out to sea. I would cast my line, wait in silence, and return with whatever the water was willing to give me. My wife was different. She was never content, never truly at peace. She looked at our hut and saw misery. She looked at our life and saw failure. While I tried to be grateful for what we had, she could only think about what we did not have. Then one day, I went out to fish as usual. The sea was calm that morning. The water moved gently and the air was cool. I threw in my line and waited. Then suddenly, I felt a strong pull. I thought to myself, at last, maybe something large, maybe something good. So I pulled and pulled until finally I brought the fish out of the water. It was a flounder, but before I could do anything, the fish spoke. Yes, it spoke. It looked at me and said, "Fisherman, please let me live. I am not a real fish. I am an enchanted prince." I still remember that moment. My hands froze. My heart beat so fast. But even in my shock, I knew one thing. I could not kill it. So I said, "Very well. If you are truly no ordinary fish, then go. I will not harm you." And I let it slip back into the sea. When I reached the hut, my wife asked me, "Did you catch anything?" And I said, "Only a flounder." But it spoke to me. It said it was an enchanted prince. So I let it go. She stared at me. Then she said, "You let it go?" "Yes," I said. "And you asked for nothing?" I looked at her confused. "No, why would I?" That was when her face changed. She stepped closer and said, "You fool, a magical fish, and you came home with nothing? Look around you. We live in this miserable hut, and you did not even ask for a better house." I tried to explain, but she would not listen. "Go back," she said. "Go back now and ask for a cottage." So I went back to the sea. I stood by the shore and called out, "Flounder, flounder in the sea." My wife wished something from the tea, and the fish appeared. It asked me, "What does she want?" I lowered my head and said, "She wants a cottage." The fish replied calmly, "Go home. She has it already." So I turned around and went back, and when I arrived, I saw that the hut was gone. In its place stood a neat little cottage. I smiled. I really smiled. I thought, this is enough. Surely now she will be happy. But I was wrong. After a while, the cottage no longer pleased her. Then one day she said, "This cottage is not enough. Go back and ask for a castle." And so I went again. This time the sea had changed. It was no longer clear and calm. The water looked darker. The wind felt heavier. Still, I called for the fish. Still, it came. Still, it granted the wish. And once again, when I returned, everything had changed. The cottage was gone. In its place stood a castle. Tall walls rose before me. Wide rooms opened inside. There were servants, fine furniture, and more space than what we had ever had before. My wife walked through in the castle as if it had always belonged to her. But even then, she was not satisfied. Soon, she wanted to be king, then emperor, then pope. Each time, I returned to the sea with greater fear in my heart, and each time the sea grew darker. The salt waves became rough. The rough water became violent. The sky turned grey. The wind became fierce. It was as if nature itself was warning me. But still, I obeyed her. Then, one day, she looked at me and said something that made my whole body go cold. She said, "I want to be like God." At first, I thought I had heard her wrongly. So I asked, "What did you say?" And she repeated it, calmly, clearly. "I want to be like God. I want power over the sun, and the moon. I could barely breathe. I looked at her and said, "Wife, that is too much." But she looked at me with anger and said, "Go to the fish." At that moment, I felt real fear. This was no longer about comfort. It was no longer about a better life. This was something for this was something far greater, something I could barely understand. Still, I went. When I reached the sea, I saw the worst sight of all. The water was black, the sky was dark and heavy, the waves crashed like they wanted to tear the world apart. The wind screamed around me. I stood there trembling. Then I called for the fish. It appeared from the water and looked at me. I could hardly speak, but somehow I forced the words out. My wife, she wants to be like God. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the fish said to me, "Go home." That was all. Just those two words. Go home. So I turned and walked back, and deep in my heart, I already knew. When I arrived, everything was gone. The palace, the power, the wealth, the glory, all gone. And there, beside the sea, stood our old miserable heart, the same heart, the same poor life. That's all from me. Thank you.